Welcome to the Neuhaus Education Center, the Houston branch of the International Dyslexia Association and the Briarwood School 2021 College Panel. My name is Lisa Bowman. I'm with the Family Support Office. And I'd like to you. So the Neuhaus Education Center promotes reading success by providing evidence-based professional learning to educators, information and resources for parents, and direct services for adult learners. In the Family Support Office, we offer information presentations and events like this evening. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jill Weisman. Jill is going to share some information about the Houston branch of International Dyslexia Association and the Briarwood School. So please welcome Jill.
Oh. Okay, I had to, no, y'all can hear me? Okay, it said I was muted, sorry. So it's a pleasure to partner with the Neuhaus Education Center to sponsor this annual college panel. The Houston branch of the International Dyslexia Association is a group of educators, professionals, and parents, and others who work together to increase awareness and support for individuals with learning differences. We provide resources through our annual resource directory and a helpline staffed by volunteer professionals. Additionally, HBIDA is proud to offer scholarships for educational diagnostics testing for children, as well as scholarships for teachers and parents to attend our conferences and symposiums. We share knowledge and professional development annually by offering a fall symposium and a spring conference, bringing nationally known speakers to the Houston community. This year on February 20th, on a Saturday morning, HBIDA will host a virtual conference featuring Jessica Minahan, speaking on the topic of children with learning differences and anxiety. She is excellent. If you haven't heard her present before, I think you would really enjoy her. In a couple of weeks, there will be registration information posted on the HBIDA website, houstonida.org. Next slide. For over 50 years, the Briarwood School has served students with dyslexia and other learning differences by providing a diagnostic prescriptive education using evidence-based interventions. This K-12 school of over 300 students is structured to provide accommodations to support students as our expert educators remediate learning gaps and build upon students' strengths. We do all of this in a nurturing environment that engages students and grows successful self-advocates who love learning. Two of our panelists tonight are Briarwood alumni, and we are so proud of them. Our panel facilitator tonight is Ms. Toni Lazures, our middle upper counselor at Briarwood. Ms. Lazures provides resources, support, and guidance to students and families as they develop and pursue post-high school plans. Additionally, Ms. Lazures is the proud mom of twin girls with diagnosed learning differences who both graduated from college within the past year. So she has a great parent perspective as well. It's my pleasure to turn it over to Ms. Lazures, who will introduce our panelists and facilitate the conversation this evening.
Thank you, Jill. Welcome, everyone. As Jill said, I'm the middle upper counselor here at Briarwood, and so I get to talk about college and post-college and pre-college all day long, and I'm really excited to be here with you. I want to introduce first Gina. Gina is a junior at Baylor, and Gina, why don't you tell us what you're majoring in so people get a little feel for your background?
Yeah, I'm majoring in entrepreneurship, so I'm in the business school.
In the business school. Henry Bean is with us, and he is a junior at Loyola, New Orleans. And Henry, what are you majoring in?
Right now I'm majoring in journalism with a minor in marketing, but I'm thinking about taking that minor in marketing and double majoring that as well.
Wow, that is ambitious as well. Good for you. Tori, you are you're a senior at University of Houston, and what are you majoring in?
I am majoring in theater production with an emphasis in costuming.
And I remember you in our Broadway kind of musicals and plays here at Briarwood, so that does not surprise me. If I'm not mistaken, Gina, you're a senior, correct?
Actually, I'm a junior, about to be a senior.
Okay, Henry, you're a junior as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And Tori, you're a senior.
Yes, ma'am.
So you all have been in college and have kind of learned how to do college for a while, correct? So Gina, tell me, when you first transitioned into college, do you remember what you did as far as your accommodations? Did you utilize them? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I remember being very, it's a little nerve-wracking starting out, but I tried to use as much as I could and just kind of pare down from there. So I ended up using my first year extended time on tests, which was the biggest help for me, and also a different testing site. So I would take my tests in a little room, and then, but that's required by Baylor. To do extended time. And I also used a alternate note taker. So someone who would, I think that's what you call it, someone who would take notes and then send them to me just so I could see what I missed, if anything, in class. And then I think I also used a software at some point where I could record my teacher's lecturing, and then I could also notate, different portions of the lecture throughout it.
Okay, so very similar to like a smart pen right now.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And what made you choose Baylor?
Oh man. So the first thing was that they had a great entrepreneurship program, which is what I was looking for. It's kind of a new major, I think. And so that stood out. And then also the professors that I got to meet personally, they just really stood out as having like a Christian mission as well as business. And that was important to me. And then also, I want to say just the people and the campus, everything, teacher-student ratio checked out. And it was close to home. So just a mixture of things.
Okay. And what high school did you go to? That'll give us a perspective of where you came from.
Yeah, I started at DeBakey High School, and then halfway through sophomore year, after being diagnosed with dyslexia, I transferred to Lamar High School.
Okay. All right. And you found Lamar's accommodations were better for you?
Yes, and better speed, more sports. Yeah.
More sports. Okay. So Henry, I know you're a graduate of Briarwood. I've known you since 7th grade. So tell me, why did you choose Loyola, and what accommodations did you use when you went there?
So I chose Loyola because I wanted to go to a smaller school, but not too small. Undergrad's about 4,000 kids, or students, I should say. And I chose it because of two other reasons. One, they have a very strong journalism program there, which is what I'm majoring in. And then the other reason is because Jesuit schools, I feel like, really care for their students, whether you find yourself religiously affiliated or not. Jesuit schools really work hard for their students. And if I'm going to be working really hard for my university, I wanted my university to work for me and with me. And I felt like Loyola did that.
Okay. What accommodations did you use when you first got there?
I used two accommodations. I used time and a half, and I also used a separate testing space as well, where I could take my tests separately.
You and I spoke previously about being in a private room, and tell me what you experienced when you were not in the private room, because I think that's really significant as well.
So as I said, I started off using time and a half in a private room, but what I heard from my friends in my classes was that, oh yeah, like the professor would answer questions in class, because if a professor would see that a lot of kids are having trouble with the same questions, they would stop the test entirely and be like, hey guys, we're having a lot of trouble with question 47 or whatever. Let's address this real quick. This is what I mean. This is what I'm looking for. Can y'all give that to me is the question. And so that help in the classroom, or that willingness to help from most of my professors in the classroom, I felt like was more valuable to me. So I relatively quickly decided to not use that room, which also sadly took away my time and a half ability. But I felt like I gained a much bigger advantage being able to ask questions directly to my professor and them addressing them.
So your school will only give you the time and a half if you're in the quiet room, kind of like Baylor, as Gina described.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Tori, I also have known you since 7th grade, and so welcome. You are now at U of H. What accommodations did you use when you got there, or did you have a different path you want to share with us?
Well, when I got to U of H, I was at my junior year, so I didn't use my accommodations much at all. But when I went to Wharton, which was my first school, which is a junior college, the first year I used time and a half with the quiet room, whole separate facility. And I also used something similar to Gina. I used a pen when that would record my professor when they were lecturing. So I would have to go back over them when I was after class and just rewrite all my notes so they're nice and orderly. And I believe that's about it with the accommodations.
Okay. And how long did all of you, and feel free to answer any of you, how long did you all use your initial accommodations? Would you say freshman year, sophomore, and then you started kind of weaning yourself off? Is that how it kind of happened?
I would say for me, the most important one has been the time and a half and separate testing room. And so I've continued that throughout my whole career in college. But I found that the note-taking software, the lecture recording was not as helpful as it could have been. And so in just the ways that, like, it was almost like I was having to listen to a lecture 2 times when that's not really what I needed. It was just, I needed to study more effectively and efficiently. So yeah, just learning that I dropped that off about sophomore year.
Okay. Tori, what about you?
I stopped my accommodations pretty early, actually after my first year. There was a major drop in, I'd say I stopped with the pen, and then I released going to a quiet room, and then also that came with having my time and a half taken away. So I thought I would be able to handle it better, which I did.
So, and Henry, you have already said that. So all of you pretty much use your accommodations initially that freshman year to kind of learn how to do college, and then kind of wean off.
Actually, what I did personally is I stopped it first semester freshman year during that first semester, because I took my first couple of tests and I was hearing everything my friends were saying. I was like, oh yeah, man, they answered that question. Like everyone said, everyone had a problem with that question. You know, the professor answered it in class and gave clarification. And at that time I saw midterms coming up and I was like, first semester freshman year midterms, I should probably do well. I should try to do my best on them. And as the very recent track record has shown that I'm not working as well as I thought I would be with my own, like with you know, time and a half and alone. So I, halfway through first semester freshman year, I switched just, you know, I guess to just being in the classroom when I took my tests and when I took my midterms and when I took my finals. And I personally saw, for me, a good amount of improvement.
Okay. So you all started with it. So I think that's important for our audience to know, that starting with your accommodations, utilizing what you need is the way to get started, and then adjusting them based on your classes, your school size, etc. Okay. This year has been unprecedented, nothing that we've ever seen before. And for the LD student, I think has been even more difficult, because going from in-class instruction to online statistically is shown not to be all that great. However, you all had to do it for college. Every college went online virtually. So Henry, can you tell me a little bit about what that transition was like, considering your LD?
Honestly, I had a really difficult time with online learning, because I feel I succeed the most in a classroom when I can talk with my professors one-on-one after the class, go to their office hours, so I can ask, they can kind of get to know me a little bit and I can get to know them. That way we can establish some kind of rapport. And I don't feel like I could do that when I was learning online, and that brought my confidence levels down a good amount. And then I didn't feel as I could absorb the information as much. When I'm there sitting in the classroom, I feel more comfortable, feel more prepared. But when I just log on to my laptop, I mean, I just don't feel like it's the same quality of education, and I don't feel like I absorb the information as much either. I think that's a big difference. That's an important distinction. Is
I,
those
I
differences.
I understand that. Even here at Briarwood, our kids tell us that from time to time. So Tori, what about you? Did you have any struggles going from in-person to online? I can imagine with your major, being in person is really important, but share with us a little bit about that transition.
Well, the transition was a bit rocky. Considering theater is a very in-person subject, the school had a bit of a hard time because they didn't know how there were certain crafting classes that I needed to take, that we had to get materials from outside sources, and everything to me, it seemed a bit overwhelming. But I had to take it in stride because I know that this is my last year, and I know that, okay, brass tacks I had to take things one step at a time.
Okay.
And a lot of people actually did not go this year because they're like, I can't do online, and I'm not very good at online either. And I knew that because I'm a very visual learner, and there were some things that were kind of left to the imagination. So I had to be a little bit proactive and had to reach out and go to these professors and say, what do I need to do? How do I complete this? Is there any possible way that we can meet? Do I have to go in person? There would be things I would have to pick up from the school and then go back and then work on it from home. So it was a bit of an experience that I wasn't expecting, but I made it out okay.
Okay. Gina, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Henry and Tori, I think I did miss a lot of elements of the in-person class, but I do think that I've seen one big positive for me is just having a lot of my professors post the videos of their lecture, and being able to, just like be able to go over multiple times a certain part of the lecture where they did say something that was really important or hard to understand conceptually. So I do like having the videos with online school. It is hard, when it's just a Zoom class and it's like a normal lecture, but you don't get that in-person eye contact and things. So there's a little bit of light. Also 2x speed, you can get through your lectures a lot faster if it's a little more of a boring professor, but that's fun.
Okay. So I know it's been a few years, but many high school students don't realize there are some major changes between high school and college. And so, Tori, if you will share with me, what do you think is one of the biggest differences between high school and that freshman year of college?
I'd say the biggest difference is class size.
Okay.
And, well, the amount of work. I know that and it's a bit strange, but when I thought going, into college, I thought there would be a massive, huge difference. But I think it was because I went to that junior college, it had the elements of what Briarwood incorporated in their classrooms, but it was a bit lesser. It wasn't as small, but it grew a bit bigger, but it wasn't exactly like that. But that's why it was easier for me to transition.
Okay, so that brings up another question, and I'll get back to you two as well. But many students don't recognize the benefit of going to a junior college first and then transitioning. And you mentioned because it was an easier transition. So class size, Briarwood is small, I get that. So class size, what would you say you had as a class size at Wharton?
Wharton, the most I've seen was probably about 20 students in one classroom, and the less I've seen was probably about 10.
Henry, what was your average class size freshman year at Loyola?
My average class size was about, I would say, 20 kids. The highest I ever got was my freshman year a mass communication seminar class, which was like 105 people. But freshman year, at the same time, I still had a class that was like 10. So it just, when you get in those big seminar classes, I feel like if you go to a 4-year university to start out with, you have to expect that big seminar classes, no matter how small your school is, are definitely going to be in the higher numbers.
And you said Loyola was 4,000 students. So let's switch over to Baylor. So Gina, Baylor's a lot bigger than that. What was your average freshman class size?
Yeah, I had just for the general education classes like Psychology 1, just different things that I had to do. They were more lecture size. So you could say like 60 to 100. There was, one class that was in this big auditorium. So that was maybe like 200 or how I'm really guessing. But but surprisingly, still my freshman year, I remember I did have a couple classes where it was just like 20 students in a classroom. So I remember being really surprised about that because it wasn't even my major yet. But that's part of the reason I enjoyed choosing Baylor, was because I knew that was a possibility of getting more teacher interaction.
And you are coming from a larger public school, so you're used to a little bit larger class size than a student from Briarwood would. Tori, you're on the panel with ADD. The rest of them don't have that. And so I'm assuming the smaller class size worked for you from your attention point of view, correct?
Yes, that it really helped immensely. There was more one-on-one with the professors as well, so I would be able to focus a bit better on the subject.
Okay. So Gina, tell me, what was the biggest transition for you? So we've talked about class size. What was the other?
Man, freshman year was so fun. But I would just say, yeah, one of the biggest changes was, which wasn't inherently bad. It was just different and a little hard to get started on. But it was really, I would say, flexing my decision-making muscle. I feel like in high school, a lot of my schedule was told to me, and I didn't have much room for free time. I would have sports in the morning and afternoon and come home and just, the same thing, eat food and do homework and do it all again. And so in college, when I showed up and I took a couple classes like in the morning, had 1 or 2, and then was free the rest of the day, I was like, wow, I guess I need to choose who my friends are, who I spend time with, where I eat. And it's kind of a bit of growing up. So it was very fun.
Okay. Henry, what was the biggest transition?
For me, there were 2 really big transition things. The first one being, I said, a lot of people I heard tell me, like, going into college, say yes. And I'm a person who likes to say yes a lot. I, like, in high school, play football, played basketball, yearbook, student council. I did a lot of things. So when I was coming into college, I was like, great, I'm a freshman year, I'm going to join a fraternity. I'm going to take a good amount of classes. I'm going to, do a whole bunch of fun stuff and join different teams and organizations. And then I quickly realized, I was like, oh, whoa, all of the things required a lot more detail and commitment to them than I realized. So, second semester and then, sophomore year, I had to buy myself, my friends and I call it a no gun. I was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. These are the 4 or 5 things that I really like, that I need to do, that I want to do, and that I have time for. The other big thing, I don't think this is an LD. This is not an LD specific challenge. Mm-hmm. I think the transition from high school to college is big. And the biggest thing that I don't think people fully realize is that no one knows who you are. Now, it's very daunting, but it's also a really big opportunity. So if you don't necessarily like the person that you are, or how you fit in to your high school experience, no one knows who you are when you go to college. So you have this amazing opportunity. So let's say you're used to being, a bit more of an introvert, not as involved. When you come to college, you don't have any of that. No one knows you didn't do much in high school, or you weren't a part of all like the X, Y, or Z. You have the opportunity to step out and do those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Or if you were really extroverted and you're like, wow, I kind of burnt myself out in high school, man, I want to kind of more focus on just my academics. that's great too. You won't have expectations of people in high school being like, oh, I know Henry's going to go join that. I know they're going to go be a part of that. Oh, I can count on Henry to always be on this team. You can focus on that. Or if you had unfair, like, stereotypes or things said about you, that baggage, luckily for you, is being left behind. You have this great opportunity to take life by the reins and make it for you, make your life what you want it to be. That's daunting. It's a big task, but it's also really important and a great opportunity.
I agree. Wasn't that long ago I did grad school. So what about the timing of lecture? What do y'all think? Because many students come back and share with me that in high school, you can interrupt really easily. Your teachers will repeat things over and over for you. College, not so much. So Tori, what's your thought about that? Is the speed of college much different than high school?
Extremely. There would be times that there would be professors that would speed through lectures. I would be rushing to take notes, trying to be like, slow down. But unfortunately, some of them would be like, no, I'm gonna keep going. That's why the note taking with the recording device was extremely precious in those moments. There would also if there would be lectures with, I actually had a lecturer that was partially deaf, so I could not really hear him, and it was geology, and I struggled a bit, but and another note, he was extremely helpful when I came to him and I explained what I had. And also Wharton actually requires you, even though the teachers are sent emails about your accommodations, they really recommend and actually require you to go and say what you have and that, oh, these are my accommodations, how can we sort this out? Because there are some teachers that if it's a certain class that, if it's a science class, for example, there would be practicals that could not be taken in a separate room, or they couldn't have extra time. So and they would make a certain schedule for you, or they're like, all right, so we can do this and this, but this accommodation we may have to sacrifice. And that would be up to the professor and the student. But that really came into play there.
Gina, did you experience that the speed of college is very different?
I would say yes. I think professors go a lot less over a certain topic than in high school. I think in high school, they often repeat things just so you know, but sometimes professors will just say one sentence and that's like maybe going to show up on a test. And so that was a little daunting. That's why I tried to get that software and just figure something out and had a note taker. But yeah, over time, I've just learned kind of more how to pick up on the important things and not write everything down. And then also just to study my textbook and things that just help all around. It's a lot faster though, I will say.
Okay. Henry, did you find it to be a lot faster?
What I found is that my professors expected me and the rest of the students to find the important details in the readings or in like the videos we had to watch or things like that. And then in class, they would go over the things in broad strokes for the most part. And it was up to the students to like come during office hours and really pick their brains about certain topics and certain ideas about the reading, which I found a bit annoying because I felt like if I'm coming to class, I should get almost everything I need. I should get everything I baseline need in class, right? And then if I need extra, then I go to office hours. But I found myself sometimes, for some professors, needing to get sometimes just a baseline information in office hours, which was frustrating. But as a person with an LD, I think that's something that unfortunately I had to expect. I'm going to, opinion with baseline, I'm gonna have to go a couple extra steps than others.
I want to talk about that in just a minute about talking with your professors, but we're talking about the transition. So I want to go back to, I know that Gina, you lived on campus. I know Henry, you started on campus, but Tori, you stayed at home for a little bit. And so I want you all to share in that transition of moving away and going on campus. And then Tori, share with us staying at home and eventually then moving on campus, or what you're doing now. But I know you stayed home for a reason. So Gina, let me start with you. You lived on campus your first year in the dorms, correct?
Correct. Yes.
What was that like, that transition?
Yeah. I will say at the beginning, it felt a little like I was camping, just figuring out the little things like how to take my soap to the shower and like, where do I change because I have a roommate, like just random things that you don't think about are going to be a big part of your life. So I really don't think I managed it very well in regards to my purpose there being school. I really jumped in kind of like Henry and said yes to a lot. But I didn't really have an issue with like having too little to do. Yeah, so I just kind of joined a lot of great organizations. But I will say that really set me up well for having great friend groups because I just met so many people and then I got to, from that, meet their friends. And so, yeah, I don't regret any of that, but I will say I had to pare down sophomore year and junior year this year to really figure out what I want to invest in. And I just work a lot with a schedule. I have iCalendar on my phone and I put dates that are in the future on there so I don't forget anything, and tests. But really, I have to now schedule things around my study time instead of the other way around where I would just try and fit study time in between all the many things that I did.
And that comes with maturity, I know. So that's your time management, your iCalendar and so forth.
Yes, it's great. Also, I use an infinite bullet point list software on my computer called Workflowy, and it's the best thing that I've found just to type little things I have to do. Yeah.
Okay, so list and iCalendar, good. So Henry, you lived on campus your first year.
My first year and my second year, I lived on campus.
Okay, so what was the transition like moving from home to being in the dorms?
I was very excited originally. I was very excited to, take on the big task of going to college is. But I found living in the dorms was an exercise in being comfortable in situations. That's what living in the dorms was like to me.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. Being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. That's what living in a dorm was, an exercise like that, because you have your own morals, you have your own standards, you have your own practices of daily living, and everyone else has their own. And some people have different levels of cleanliness or anything. And you have to learn to be compromising, because you can't just walk in and expect people to look like you
your way.
Right.
And even like the super important things to go your way, sometimes you have to learn to let that go the other way. And I had a really hard time with my freshman year roommate, the whole debacle. But I did learn a lot about, myself and how I handle situations like that are complicated, but you're forced to be in those situations. You have to be in those situations. Almost like you have a bad, annoying boss, but you can't really do much about that. So it's learning to work like that.
Get it. Tori, you stayed at home that first year or so. Tell me what that was about. So you stayed at home for a reason.
Yes, because it was mostly financial.
Okay.
And of course the Wharton campus that I was going to at the time was right next to my house, and they didn't have a dorm.
Okay.
So it was just a work campus, what I called it. You just went there and came back home, and that's how it went for a while. And then I transferred over to the main campus, which was an hour away, but they had dorms. But we didn't see a reason, because that was going to be my last year there. And then over at University of Houston, we didn't really see a reason as to why to get a dorm at that point either.
Mhm.
it gets very expensive. And from what I gather from my friends who do have dorms over there, it increases, I believe around like $8,000, which we didn't consider it worth it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we just went with, me just commuting from home.
Do you feel like staying at home hindered you from still meeting people, getting out, having fun, those kind of things?
No, not at all. It was actually, there really was no stop. Like I get it, you know what? And actually it took some stress off of me to come home and not have to go to a dorm and, stress about, where, my stuff and making sure everything's in place and everything's organized and, okay, where to look for next. I just knew that I could come home and that I could work and that everything would be in a nice, peaceful spot.
So it took some anxiety off you. Henry, you were going to say something?
Another thing I wanted to add in that unique to my experience, but my RA, my freshman year, his name's Anderson. In my phone, I have his name as my RA for life because he ended up being is my best friend in college, really. He happened to be in the fraternity that I was rushing and in the journalism school as well. So he pointed me he told me, which pitfalls to watch out for. He told me what professors would be like. Henry, once we got a rapport, he was like, "Oh, Henry, I know you're gonna work really well with this professor. You're not gonna like this professor. You're gonna really want to go this route," and those kinds of things. And so having my RA be a real guide for me was very useful for me in my college experience. Now, some people got really bad RAs who weren't really there to help them. But in my experience, the RAs that I've had have only been, kind of like directors for their residents on how to best have a healthy experience in college, even on an individual basis, not just like a template basis, but for each individual person, very helpful in, tailoring their college experience so it is the most useful and effective for them.
And Gina, did you not share with me you were an RA at one time?
Yes, ma'am. Actually this year and last year. So freshman year, I loved the dorm and it was just a great deal with Baylor that they pay for your room and food. So I applied and I got the job and it's been great.
Okay. And are you said you're RAing this year as well?
So I did the beginning of this semester, but I've just had a lot of family things. And so I'm actually taking a step back this coming semester. And so someone else is taking my spot, but it's been nothing but good job wise.
Okay. Last week when the three of us got together and we talked a little bit about learning how to do college, that it's very different than just the academic part. And so we talked about utilizing the resources at college to make college doable besides academics. So Gina, can you share with me some of the things you learned in how to do college and kind of what that means?
Sure. So I think if I understand correctly, I would just answer that. I mean, there's so many just facilities and people on campus that are willing to help you as far as getting connected to organizations or if you are feeling anxious to get connected with the counseling center. And I've just been blown away by the opportunities that there are for people to show you how to do college. They teach you how to study. They teach you how to even plan your time. There are nutritionists to help you with your meals. Baylor's just been great for me. I think personally, let's see if I've utilized the counseling center just in different times of hardship throughout college, and it's been really professional. And I've been like, wow, this is free, and I can't believe it. But yeah, does that kind of answer?
It does. It does. So you're utilizing several resources, and that's where I'm going with this, that you have to utilize what's available to you. Tori, what about you?
Well, to learn how to do college, it was a bit out of my comfort zone because I was very introverted in high school. So what really got me to understand what was going on was talking to people, trying to understand, okay, you know, how do I navigate this? Talking to the students. They actually helped me immensely with, you know, picking, you know, what classes to take, what teachers to get, who was, you know, maybe not the best, or maybe, you know, there's like someone who explains things better, who is more accommodating. And it really helped me, well, I would say, blossom into that environment, just speaking to people and speaking to your professors. Also, I did take an anatomy course that was meant for nursing majors, but I wanted to, you know, I heard that, oh, this, you know, this professor was great. And I would speak to him daily. And I apparently was one of the only students that did. And he was extremely accommodating. And a lot of people are, and it's unfortunate, but they don't speak to their professors, which could help you in the long run. It really, it can help your grade, and your connection with them is extremely important. And I think people really need to understand that. And it can, it actually helped me pass anatomy, and it just to establish that connection with your professor is just extremely precious to the whole college experience, and it will make it way more fluid and flow a lot better.
So that self-advocacy piece. Henry, you talked about that a little bit when we talked last week, that meeting with your professors kind of got you known throughout your department.
What I really knew, as I mentioned earlier, one of the ways I feel like I succeed best is by forming a relationship, a professional relationship with my teachers. And I do that by asking them questions during office hours and going up and introducing myself to them after class the very first day. You can't wait for the second day, the third week, any of the very first day. And going up and just saying, hi, my name is Henry B. I'm really excited to be in your class this semester. And then I explain to them my LDs, and we talk about it a little bit. And I say, hey, I'd love to talk to you about it more in your office hours. I'll also kind of shoot you an email just so we can set up a time. They're always, typically, I won't say always, typically they're really, really open to that. They like that. They're like they like the initiative. They like the drive. They like to hear that you want to work with them. Because a lot of times they have kids who come up with problems the last week, you know, the week before the final, the week before midterms, and you will find no luck there. You will find zero. You have to, if you want to form a good relationship, working, understanding relationship with your professors, you have to start day one. That got me in my journalism department. I had teachers, I started coming up to a teacher one time. They said, let me guess, you're Henry Bean. And I was like, yeah, I'm high, and caught me off guard, put me on my heels. Like, no, I heard some professors talk very, very well of you, and excited to have you in my class. And that really, you know, warmed my heart, made me feel good, made me feel confident, knew that was reassurance that what I was doing was benefiting me in the long run. The
Is
other
that
thing,
how your school, is that how you tell them about your LD? Do you tell them, or does your school tell them? Did you go up to your professors and say, I have an LD, or does your student services do it for you? I
do not know. Only thing I know is that I definitely told them personally, face to face. Maybe I every time I told my professors about my learning difference and things like that, they always seemed to be that was the first time they were hearing it and learning about it.
Okay.
So that's what I would say about that. The other thing I would like to say is just listen, not only with your ears, but with your eyes. By doing that, you're going to listen for what the administrators are saying and telling you about the resources that you can go get. Listen to your professors about how they speak to you and what they say about their syllabus and the instructions for their general class. And then also, most of all, listen to other students, specifically, like, you know, juniors, maybe even seniors, because they've gone through it. They might not have a learning difference like you, but they do know a lot more about, and they can help you pick the right things, such as like the right fraternity to join, the right sorority to join, anything like that, right teams, stuff like that. Really important.
Tori, do you recall, I kind of know for you and Henry actually personally, but, and Jeannie, feel free to answer this. One of the questions was, did you guys update your testing before you went off to college? And a lot of parents may not know, unless they work with me personally, that your testing does need to be updated every 3 years. So Henry and Tori, I know actually that your testing was updated because I kind of push it your junior year so that we could use it for accommodations and so forth. So Gina, tell me your experience coming from public school. What did you do? Or do you remember?
Yeah, so I think I just remember, I remember hearing my mom mostly tell me that I needed to, the reason we were transferring schools, actually a big deal, was that I needed to start using accommodations in high school so that I could have evidence of, oh, I've used this and this is what was helping me. So by the time I got to college, they would see that as legitimate and it wasn't just starting then. And so I don't remember though ever like taking another test to evaluate my dyslexia, but I think they did. Yeah, I didn't have to take a test at Baylor if that's what that would mean. But yeah, Baylor did accept the accommodations and all the documents that I had from high school.
Okay, so what the answer to that question, it was in our Q&A, is that yes, testing needs to be within 3 years, and junior year or just before junior year is a really good time to do that because you can use it for accommodations on the ACT and SAT along with getting into college. So I hope I answered that question. What was I going to ask you? Tori, did you go to your professors and tell them your LD, or does your school do it, or was it both? I just want to go over that.
The school does it. They, I think I stated this before, but they email all the professors. They want you to go in person and state it.
Okay.
Because what is actually a thing is that if you don't say it, then your accommodations will not be used. If you don't say it to them, like it'll be emailed to them. Sometimes the professor will come up to you and say like, oh, I got this email, we can talk about your accommodations after class. Sometimes they won't address it. And I was fine with that because I was weaning myself off of the accommodations. But so it was just a bit of both.
Okay. And Gina, you said they notified them.
Similar to Tori, yes, they get an email and it should be, yeah, it's most professors are good with that email and they'll let you schedule tests on your own with the accommodations office. But it's very recommended that you speak to them just to work around, hey, I need to schedule this test a different day because it interferes, the extended time interferes with another class, just different things like that, that you need to really partner with them on.
One of our questions right now is, did you all tell the school you had an LD as you were applying? Gina? Because I don't think that's on the application, so.
Oh, yes, then I think I do remember doing that. Yeah, a while ago, so it's a little rough.
Tori, did you share with Wharton that you had an LD in your application process or once you were accepted?
I let them know after I was accepted. I had to go into an office and explain and go over paperwork with them in their office.
And Henry?
I did it after I was accepted, and what I did is that once I narrowed it down, oh, cool, these are my couple of schools that I really care about, that I'm really most likely I'm going to go to. When I went to go tour them, and after the tour, if I could find the tour leader, or if I could get a hold of an administrator, I would talk to them about my LD, and then I'd say, hey, would you mind taking me to go to to your office? Could I go see it? Is there any way I could do that? And that was for me, so I could go see the office. I could be comfortable, familiar with it if I went there, but also to check the status of the building. How are they upkeeping it? Is it looking like they're putting money into this? Does it look like they're caring about this department? Because I don't want to go into something that they're not caring about or that they're clearly not putting money towards. Because if they're not putting money towards it, that means it's not going to be as good of a program for their students. Probably. Won't say for sure, but I'm just going to say probably. And that was really big for me, making
Okay.
sure quality facilities.
I kind of remember that as you were looking at colleges, now that I think about it. What are you guys doing for extracurricular activities at school? So you're older now, you're a little more mature than you were freshman year. What are you doing for fun right now? Gina?
Yes, I'm just kind of seeing how much time it really takes to invest in friendships. As I'm, getting toward graduating, I see that it's much more worth it. So I'm paring down on the amount of like big organizations that I'm a part of, and I'm just sticking to the main one that I'm in, which is Young Life. So I'm on a team that's placed at a high school, and it's a kind of ministry for high schoolers. And then also, because I'm taking a step back from my job, I have more time, and I'm going to invest in my kind of physical activity. So I'm going to start CrossFit at a gym pretty consistently this semester, but mainly just friendships and taking care of myself and having a balanced life. More academic time is needed. So
Okay,
that's
sounds good. I did Young Life as a student too.
Hmm.
Tori, what are you doing for fun? Theater world is so busy. So what, do you get time to have fun?
Well, theater is my fun, actually. It's incorporated into it. Well, I do have time to, I'd say fitness is where I get to be outside of theater, but um, theater really does take up most of my day. I just recently did a show for like it was on Zoom, but I had to go in person, and usually it goes to sometimes like for long practices, it's from like 11 in the morning to 11 at night. So things get a little messed up for a while, but well, schedule wise. But so yes, I really theater has become my fun in that way.
And Henry, I know you joined a fraternity. So what else are you doing? Tell us about the fraternity and what else are you doing for fun? Because you said you were cutting back on some things. So
Yeah, I cut back on a few, just always saying yes to everything I'm either invited to by friends or organizations reaching out to me to do stuff. But for my fraternity, I mean, I joined my first semester, freshman year, instantly became and then I went for a chair position immediately, and I became the risk management chair. So I took care of all the security at parties, and I took care of just like establishing venues, making sure we have the right paperwork to be able to go to venues. And now my most recent position is treasurer. So I handle all the money that our fraternity deals with. I recently just, we just had elections just a couple months ago, and I'm not going to be doing a position this year, but I will remain an active member of my fraternity. I stepped back from that role because it's very big, and I decided to go more towards, I'm getting hopefully an internship with, and then I'm also going to be getting a job as well this coming semester, balancing those two things out with school, friends, and that's really what I'm going for right now, most of all.
So how many credit hours did you all take your freshman year? Gina, how many hours did you take?
I want to say either 15 or 16, which
Was that
is
doable for you?
full load. Say again.
Was that doable for you?
It was doable. I would say it was a struggle, only because a lot of the general education classes like history and English that I was made to take, I'm just less interested in. And so it's just hard those first 2 years sometimes, but the load I was able to balance. Yeah.
So 15. So that's 5 classes?
It was about 5. Yes.
5 classes. Tori, how many hours did you take?
I took the same amount as Gina. It was 15 hours.
Okay. And Henry, how many did you take freshman year?
I took the minimum, which I believe is 12. It's
Okay.
4 classes. Here's the reason why, though. One of the classes was a service learning requirement, and so that was an extra 20 hours during my free time that I had to go volunteer and work with I forget where I had to work with, but it was a part of the class. And then I also felt like if I really needed to work my way into college. And so I wanted to start out with the minimum and then work up from there so that I could, best gauge my abilities and, my comfort level with how many classes I could take while balancing out a healthy amount of personal time, going out with friends, joining the fraternity and things like that. Because I think the work, then personal life balance is really important. And sometimes I see kids come into college, they're just like 21 credits, boom, max. And I'm like, wow, you're only going to be in the library. That's all you're going to do.
That's where they should see you with 21 hours.
Yeah, and understandably, and if that's what they want, great. If they know that's what they need, fantastic. I respect it. But I've also seen a lot of kids get burnt out really quickly on their schoolwork. They think that they can take it all on, and they really can't. And it's a daunting task. And so, yeah, that's why.
Gina, how many hours do you think you studied your freshman year a week? Let's say a week.
Man, I mean, so they typically say 3 hours of studying per 1 hour in class. I think that's something I heard. I probably did an hour for some classes. It was really I was mainly socializing, but I just did whatever I knew I needed to get an A or B. And so some classes, required more. So I would say 1 to 2 hours per class. Mhm.
Okay. Tori, what would you say?
For studying, I didn't, well, of course, me being with my attention kind of waning for, for studying for hours and hours and hours, I did it in segments, 30 minutes, look at the material, take it in, give myself a couple breaks, 5-minute breaks, and then go back and look over the material. And of course, I was very good at memorizing. So it wasn't as, I wasn't, I have to study for, 5 hours a day and, really stress myself out, because I know that people with anxiety, it's really, really tough to just sit there and look at the material and be like, oh, there's so much stuff I have to memorize. But no, taking it really one step at a time and going through each class, maybe spanning it out through a couple of days and not doing it last minute. But that's what I did.
Okay. Henry, how much did you study?
I would say freshman year, I studied about 12 to 15 hours for business week. So that's Monday to Friday, 12 to 15 hours. I like to, again, healthy work, personal life balance. I try to save my weekends as best as possible so that I could, go out and do events, hang out with friends. Now, in that 12 to 15 hours, I'm not including office hours or group projects. I'm just talking about Henry Bean sitting down in the library, flipping over textbooks, readings, things like that.
Okay. Another question I just saw was, how has COVID changed things for you all? And would you recommend a gap year? So Gina?
Yeah, I think, Baylor, just to be, for me specifically, Baylor, I think has done a great job at allowing us to come back to campus and just putting things in place. Like now we have to wear masks whenever we were in the dorms. Just things that aren't so fun, but it's been great to be able to be on campus and still have some in-person classes. They're just more spread out and just different little safety things. But so COVID has really just changed, I guess, comfort level for me of just, the a little annoyances of differences like that with masks. But then also, I think it's really slowed things down. Organizations haven't been able to meet as big groups a lot anymore. And so it's moved a lot to Zoom, or just things have been canceled. So, for Baylor wise, I would say I wouldn't recommend a gap year, but I think there are just so many individual things you have to consider as far as how much you're paying for your college experience. And if you would, have something that you really want to do in a gap year. If you were moving all online, then I might recommend take a gap year if you don't want to do that. But I think it's really up to you and your college.
Mhm. Y'all are so far in your program, that's probably harder to do at this point, taking a gap year so that you can be out of school. Tori, how has COVID changed things for you?
Well, it has made it harder to interact with, well, I mean, doing theater, the 6 feet apart uh, restriction, considering I'm in costuming when I have to do quick changes for the actors is quite difficult, and I can't do that. So uh, it really was a rerouting of what can be accomplished, how to think of new ways to approach different situations that pertain to closeness and well, interactions. But as for a gap year, considering this, if you're a junior or senior, it's extremely not recommended to do that, because it's hard to go online. But if you take that semester off, it's just hard to it's more draining, I would say, to try to complete that year after you're just done with if you were to take the semester off, it's harder to kind of push that motivation to go in and finish the year off after.
You lose that momentum that you have going right now. Henry, what about you? How has COVID affected you, and what about a gap year?
I mentioned earlier that it was really hard for me, the whole learning online. Luckily, my university has been very good about working with their students and, trying to accommodate as best as they can. Now, in terms of, should you or should you not take a gap year? I'm not going to say yes or no. But what I will say is that 2 things. One, if you're going to take a gap year, or if you've ever thought about taking a gap year, now is the time to do it over anything else. Now they'll be like, people will look at your resume, because I know a few people who have worked in businesses and things like that, and they've said, oh, if they see you took a gap year during this time right around COVID, they're gonna be like, oh no, that makes sense, understandable, and they're gonna really look over that. Mm-hmm. And so there's that. Also, if you're gonna take a gap year, do something with it. I'm not taking a gap year. Don't sit at home and play video games. Don't just take care of the dogs. No, especially if you're a junior or senior, as Tori said, you should be only doing that, in my opinion, if you're going to get an internship, if you're working in the industry you want to go into. If they see that, oh, he took a gap year, okay, great. Oh, he did it at this newspaper where he did X, Y, or Z at. Okay, that's great. That's beneficial. That's helping you. That might even give you an edge. Mm-hmm. So
still education, but in a different format.
Yes, ma'am. Gaining real world experience.
I get that. I see another question. Give me 1 second. Okay, I think we answered them all. Okay, we answered all those. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So what would you say for incoming freshmen, some word of advice to get them going, to encourage them? Tori, let's start with you this time. What would you say to your fellow Briarwood students here, or students at whatever school? What would you say to help them get started freshman year?
I would say, take one step at a time. Do not think that you have to be the best of the best, perfection at every subject, because it is a lot. It's a lot to take in. As much as my transition was easy, there's a lot of things that I knew that, all right, well, I'm going to have to work at this, but to really just look at the piece by piece by piece, not to take the whole big picture in all the first day and panic, because panicking is going to make the situation a whole lot more stressful than it has to be. So just to look at the place you're at, kind of analyze your environment, and just take it in gradually.
One step at a time. Okay. Mm-hmm. Gina?
Yeah, I mean, It's an exciting time. I'm just really happy for anyone who's thinking about college going. I think while it is challenging, it is so worth it. As far as, I mean, as much as you can handle financially, like it just really broadens you to a lot of friend groups and a lot of just things you never have tried before. So I would just say embrace it and don't be afraid to go to events or things by yourself. I've just really grown from that. Even sitting with people I don't know at lunch or cafeterias has really just benefited my life. And yeah, so go at it with 100%, but also, you know, the fine balance, like Victoria said, take each day at a time. Yeah, one step at a time. So I'm just really happy for you guys. You got this.
Henry, what word of advice would you give to them?
I would say that nobody has it all. And by that, I mean, when I came into college and still now to this, I'll be worrying about something or, you know, stressing out about, you know, how I'm performing compared to other people or how I'm performing compared to like my own standards that I've set for myself and expectations. And then I have to sit back and realize that nobody has it all figured out. Nobody knows all the answers. Nobody knows, you know, everything. And there are going to be people who are struggling with the same things that you're struggling with. You're not the only one who's, you know, who's having some trouble. You know, everyone's got their own thing. Nobody has it all. Nobody has all the answers. Nobody has all the confidence. Nobody has their entire life planned out. And if they do, if they tell you that to your face, they're lying. I'm telling you right now. So remember that other people are in a similar boat, if not the exact same boat that you're also in.
I just got a question. So Gina, you said you used the your time management was the iCalendar, and what was the name of the website you mentioned?
Yeah, that website is called Workflowy, and it's all one word. So it's WORK and then Flowy, FLOWY or
Okay.
EY. Checking on that. But yeah, it's just, if you look on the interwebs, it's just an infinite bullet point like website thing. And it's been just really, at least for me, my like just kind of logical side, it's really helpful just to have just words and to be able to, you know, minimize things into little lists and easily move things around. So that's what I use.
Okay. Tori, what's your time management setup? What do you use?
For my time management setup, well, I would mostly write things down, and the pen that I actually got had a little notebook with it, and I would write down all of while the teacher was listing things out. He's like, all right, so you know this is due to this and this and this and this, and I'd write it all down. I know it's so hard sometimes when you're just like, you know, you're distracted with a million things, but it's really good just to write down all those dates things are due, because things tend to get away from you. It's a natural thing that happens, you know, going into college and, all the extracurricular stuff and getting distracted with that. It's hard, but also if you're very unsure about with dates, like, you know, emailing your professors and then getting them, you know, straight from the horse's mouth, it really helps. And just to have that organization going, and calendars are really, really helpful as well.
I was just going to ask, do either of you use a calendar or a planner to write stuff down?
Yeah, I use that along with the notebook just to keep track of, you know, and it just helps with due dates. It really is just excellent for that.
Henry, what is your time management tool?
What I like to do is that typically in class and things like that, I like just pen and paper, just something about the writing it down physically, not typing it, but writing it down physically really helps my brain. And then also what I've had a lot of teachers think, or they say, is that they see you on your phone, you're on your phone doing this. You could very easily be writing down notes. You could also be very easily on Twitter. Same thing even with your laptop. Some professors, it's less than the phone for sure, but some professors, even with the laptop, they don't like it because it kind of gets in their head. So if you just have that pen and paper out, they like it more. And then also what I'll do with those notes, with those lists, it's satisfying to check them all off, but also I print out all my syllabi, whatever, early, and I lay out like my day-to-day stuff on Google Calendar. It's easy to move stuff around. It's easy to add things. It's easy to make little notes on Google Calendar. But when I'm face-to-face with my professors or administrator or whoever I'm with, I'm using pen and paper.
Okay. Do any of you use your phone? And Gina, jump in. Go ahead.
Sorry, real fast. I will say, yeah, I just wanted to affirm what Henry was saying, that I've seen that at Baylor too, professors just really, I think, have no, they almost like enjoy seeing you write down what they're saying on paper. And so I will like take what the dates that I write down, and then I'll just put them into like workflowy on my own time. And it's kind of just like it's almost like a time for me to really review all that's happened in the class. And then I have a paper calendar where I put big tests and important dates. And then I actually schedule out maybe like 8 days and say like, start studying for this now. And then it just kind of reminds me like, oh shoot, like this thing is coming up. And Henry, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Google Calendar is something we push a lot here at Briarwood. And so I agree with Google Calendar. It's easy to move things around. It pops up on your phone. You can set it up so you can see it quite often. One of you mentioned syllabuses, and Henry, you said you look at them, you print them out early. Do you sit down with each one and write out the dates in your planner or wherever so that you can remember those big tests, especially if you have 4 or 5 classes? You could have tests that overlap each other, papers that overlap each other. So yeah. Do you all do that with your syllabi when you first get into class? Gina says yes. Tori, you say yes. Henry, you
also with Google Calendar, like first thing I do is I do the big stuff, find here, and then I kind of break off to the smaller things that I personally find are more important, are also important. But also with Google Calendar, you can set reminders.
Yes, you can.
So and then they'll push this onto your phone, just like a text message or a tweet to be like, hey, in like 30 minutes you got this thing, and I'm like, oh no, I'm across town, I got to get there, and then you can go and do it. And so I think that's really helpful. Not only do you not have to just keep like reminding yourself, it reminds you for you.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Tori.
Also, big thing with the syllabuses and classes to keep separate binders for each course. Extremely awesome for organization and, to get things, in correct classes. So not everything is jumbled up, especially for students who have a hard time with, keeping track of what's what. I've had that when I first started and it was absolutely hectic. But so that really helps just to keep the, and color code, the binders as well, and along with stuff like that. So that really helped out.
Okay, thank you. I saw another. Do you guys think doing an internship in college early on or waiting till you're more near your junior year is the best time? One of you mentioned you're getting ready to get an internship and a job. Gina, you and Henry, I think. So early on or wait? And I have an answer myself, but one of you jump in there. Junior year?
Go for it, Gina. Go for it.
All right. So I actually don't have one lined up for this this coming summer, but I would love one, and I am looking for one. But I think my first couple summers I've used those for other things that I wanted to do. And so for me, it's worked out to wait until junior and senior year, because then I also kind of have a better idea of what I'm interested in just based on seeing what's happening in my marketing class or in my, professional sellings class. So I think for me, I would say wait, but it's really depends on what you have going on, what opportunities you have early on. But for me, I was, interning in my youth group and just different fun camps and things. So it was better for me to wait till now.
Okay. And Henry, you're getting ready to get a job or an internship?
job and internship. This was my second job while I'm in college too. But as in my opinion, as soon as you personally feel ready to take on an internship or a job, the sooner the better, because the more you can load up your resume with, the better off you're going to be. The people, like, not only will job opportunities, will they come more quickly to you because you'll have those connections, but also when you go to apply for jobs, you're going to see that, like, that they really like, oh no, he hasn't just been sitting around going to college. No, he might have this guy might have taken, like, more classes than him, but this guy's actually been in the field. He's been doing the work. He's been with the people he knows. Ben, Joe, and Steven from this place. I'm friends with Ben, Joe, and Steven. That's really important. The connections, making connections. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, internships, jobs. They show that you like to work, and that's what people want.
I love this next question I just saw. So what would you say your diagnosis is? Is it mild, moderate, severe? And when did you have that aha moment, I can actually do college or get through college? So Gina?
I would say, just based on the nature of how late I was diagnosed, I would say mild, because I've just heard that, like, usually you find out you have dyslexia early on, like kindergarten or something. But I found out sophomore year of high school. And for me, it was just based on, the ramping up of required reading speeds and quizzes where you only have like 10 seconds to see the answers. And so crazy stuff at DeBakey. But yeah, I think in college, I just remember doing my best and then seeing that, like, oh, on this test that I thought was really hard, like I got a B, or things that, I mean, and I'm okay with B's, like I'm not the straight A, like super only school thing student. But yeah, I think that would be my aha moment, is just seeing that, like, what I was doing and what I was hoping to accomplish was possible. So yeah, I'll just leave that.
Okay. Tori, would you describe your LD? You can tell us what it is. And is it mild, moderate, severe? And when did you have that aha moment that you can finish college? You're a senior, so you must have had it.
Well, I'd say my ADD is very high. It's the highest it can be. For my aha moment, it was actually my freshman year that I thought I could do this, because I was extremely afraid of what college was going, to be like. And when I experienced, going into classes and, getting the material, I realized, you know what? This is going to work out. This is going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And that was the ultimate key to, I didn't think, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to get C's and D's, and I'm not going to excel like everybody else is going to, because, my ADD, I'm getting distracted. There's, how am I ever going to organize myself? And no, I surprised myself. I got A's and B's everywhere, and it was amazing to me. So
Okay.
those grades proved that
you can do it. Henry, what would you say what is your LD? Would you say it's mild, moderate, severe, and the aha moment?
I have dyslexia and I have dysgraphia. I would say both are about moderate, but what's happened for me personally is that I've become very comfortable working with it and okay at, not being the best at whatever instantly, and not being the best ever, possibly. Obviously, you can't be the best at everything. So I keep trying to, I do my best to every day add another tool to my toolbox of the best way or new ways to work with my learning difference. I don't feel like I could ever have enough tools to accomplish anything. But every day I feel like I have to reaffirm myself that, I can do college. I got this. This is an everyday thing for me where I kind of, look myself in the mirror. I'm like, man, you got this. You got today. You got, like, nothing's going to stop you from doing whatever you want to do, you know, down the road, or doing what you want to do right now today. The only thing that's going to be in your way is your own willpower. And it's an everyday reminder that I got this, that I can tackle it all, anything I want.
Well, having known you and Tori for a very long time, I can definitely tell you that you both have learned to adapt to your LD and seem to have just shoot off. I saw that like junior year, that y'all just both kind of took off. So kudos to you. If there are any other questions, please put them in the Q&A. I think I've answered all of them that are in there. One last question, and it's a question of mine. How would you guys help parents help their students? Like, what would your advice be to a parent of a student who's getting ready to apply to college or go to college, in navigating those waters, both the application process or meeting with the LD part? Would you tell them to stay on top of it or back off a little bit? What would you say you would tell the parents of that LD student? And as a parent of an LD student, I've been told some things that I now recognize. So I'm asking you as the student, what would you say? So Tori, I'm gonna start with you this time. What would you tell all the parents that are out there how to help and encourage their student?
I would say that there is some sort of guidance with, you know, the application process, and to kind of, I mean, with me, you know, my parents actually helped me, you know, with the application process, because things, you know, to navigate, you know, websites and, you know, all these little mini things you had to go through in order to get, you know, the application going, and how to, you know, route to, you know, all right, where to look for classes, how to, you know, register. Like for freshman year, I didn't really know what I was doing. Just to, you know, to kind of like be in their corner, kind of have that, you know, like, you know, it's not like, you know, a whole like takeover of, you know, what they're doing, but just to kind of point out, like, you know, this is, you know, you're going in the right direction, kind of give them that little push forward. And you know, I found, you know, myself, you know, going through and having an easier flow, because, you know, my mother, she helped me out with, you know, all right, we have to go to this, you know, we'll go to this place, and this is where we're going to have to turn in this, you know, application for, you know, your accommodations. And so it was just that, you know, to have, you know, I knew that she had my back, and that just made it a lot easier for me to go into there with a little bit, you know, more confidence.
Okay, Henry?
This is a really tough question because it's kind of a case for case basis, but I can only speak from my experiences, and my experience is that my parents were very helpful to me, helping me, you know, apply for colleges, and not forgetting, like, you know, the little details that you also need to add into things, not forgetting that little piece of paperwork and stuff like that. Where I love my parents, they're fantastic people, where I feel like they could have done a little bit better, personally, I think, is that letting me go a little bit more, a little bit sooner. I feel like sometimes I told them, I was like, hey, I got this. Like, I can do this. I got it. I got this thing. And I feel like sometimes they didn't let me do it and let me have it. Okay. And sometimes whenever they let me do it, let me have it, I messed up and I came back and I was like, so remember when I said I had it? I didn't have it. I didn't. And that's honestly, that's just how things are going to be. Like, you're going to fall a few times, you're going to get back up, and you're going to do better, and you're going to overcome anything that comes in your way. But I think it's the parents letting their kids, you know, sometimes fail. Small, not big. I'm not talking big stuff. I'm talking little things. I don't want y'all to think that I'm telling anyone, you know, abandon their children. No, but just
back off a little bit.
Just a little bit. And you know what? When push comes to shove, they'll definitely tell you whenever they need their help. I mean.
Okay. Gina?
Yeah, my answer would just be an echo, I think, of Henry's. My parents were also very helpful in just, you know, pushing me to the accommodation center and helping me just with the necessary paperwork. And these were things that they had kind of helped out. They were kind of leading me in high school. And so I think the things that parents have had like big ownership over that the student would have no clue how to do. They might need to step in and like lead them just kind of to push them into college, and then they're going to be free. But I would say that as in many places as you can, really communicate to your student, hey, like you're an adult now and you're going to be, if they're going to be living away from home more so, I would say, hey, you, if you want to apply to this school, like here's the website, I'm going to cheer for you, I'm going to help you gather information if you need, but it's up to you to really do this. And I think that also gives, at least for me, yeah, there were a couple of instances where I would have appreciated more freedom to do that, and less, constant daily, hey, is this done yet? When I know that I need to do something. Yeah, kind of like Henry, if I need help, like I will
Ask for it.
they will go to you. Yeah. So yeah, they're adults, and it's I can imagine it'd be really scary to kind of relinquish some of that control or insight into what they're doing. But as much as you can, I would say do that.
Back off a little bit. I think that is the last question that I saw. For those of you attending this webinar, I just wanted you to know it has been recorded. It will be on the Neuhaus website in a week or so. They've got to do some editing, I'm sure. Mary, is there, I do think there is one more. I'm sorry, I just saw something come up. Hold on. So the question is, did any of you have any interventions during high school? And I kind of know that answer for two of you. Gina, what interventions did you have in high school to help with your LD?
Can you expand on what you mean by intervention?
So what accommodations or what did they put in place to assist you with your LD?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would just say in high school, all I really needed at that time was time and a half on tests. I was getting to a place at DeBakey where, let's say, like in chemistry class, I would only get to read half the questions, and so I'd be failing every test, just not even based on my knowledge, but based on the time allotted. And so when we found out I had dyslexia, that was a big issue. And so that's part of the reason my parents came to me and said, hey, we think you need to change high schools because we're not getting anywhere. And I'd experienced this firsthand of not really getting any help from my teachers or the school. I hope they've changed some now, but it was just difficult. And so, yeah, I would say if that answers the question, that was kind of an intervention of, hey, we need to get you help. And so Lamar was very accommodating with time and a half on most things, and some even assignments. So that was great.
Did you get co-teachers in some of your classes to assist you, to pull you out and kind of work with you one-on-one? Do you remember?
I did. I don't think I needed that. So no.
Okay. Tori, do you remember some of your accommodations when you were at Briarwood?
My accommodations were, I believe it was time and a half, the separate room to take the testing. And from what I gathered, and from what I remember, it's been a while, but going after class, one-on-one with the teachers, and that, or tutorials after, after school. They would just, go over the material with me, like, especially in math, I would, do that. And that's really what I had for accommodations then.
Henry?
What I mainly remember is the time and a half situation that I had in high school. I apologize. I don't remember a whole lot more than that. If you remember more than I do, please feel free to bring it up. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, and that's okay if I am.
Actually, at Briarwood, we give you a little bit more than time and a half. You two, I kind of remember time and a half, but our students actually can get up to double time if they need it on test. A quiet room for sure. Modified homework assignments if you need it. If you don't need it, we won't do it. And those are kind of the standards. It kind of depends on the student, what they need. Some of our kids have anxiety and ADD, and so we give them some breaks, let them stand up in class if they need to stretch out and move around a little bit. So we are very flexible at Briarwood, and y'all used whatever you needed to get through. So that's really important. Mary just mentioned there's one last question. I know you guys need to head out. What was the note-taking software Gina used with her pen? One more time, what was the software at Baylor that it was similar to the Smart Pen? Do you remember?
Okay. I want to say the software was called Sonocent. I'm going to see if I can just pull up on Safari and just make sure that's what it looks like. Sonocent. But it was pushed by Baylor. So I got an email one day as a freshman or sophomore, and they were like, hey, this is the accommodations office, and we're trying this new software. Would you be willing to be one of the students to test it and use it this semester? And I was like, yes, like that sounds awesome. And so it was free. Yeah, it looks like Sonocent. So Sonocent. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's it. So I hope that helps. It was good. I mean, it's a beautiful software, and if someone thrives with that, I think it's great. Just for me, that didn't seem to be the issue really with my classes. So
I've encouraged a lot of students to get the Smart Pen. There's several different types, but the Smart Pen records your notes while you're taking notes, but it'll also play back. So if you missed a particular sentence, there's a particular paper that comes with the Smart Pen. And if you put your pen on that particular portion of the notes, it'll play back exactly what the professor said at that moment in time. So it's very, very, I could have used it, and I don't have an LD, but I certainly could have used that in college. So the Smart Pen works very similar to what that sounds like. Go ahead.
And I will say, I think the only issue I ran into was, or just something to keep in mind, is because Sonocent is something that's used on your laptop and also your mobile phone. So it's very cool because you can kind of use both. But it's great. It's just, there was one teacher that, was very old fashioned, and he said, hey, I don't want any technology in my class. And so because I was trying it that semester, I had to talk to him and see if I could just have something arranged to where I could be the only one in class using the laptop. And so sometimes what teachers do though too is they might change your seating so that you're kind of sitting in the back so people don't see you or get distracted. But just keep that in mind, because it is only for laptops and mobile phones, and the pen might be more discreet on paper.
Mm-hmm. Tori?
So with the recording of the lecture, which I used to do on my iPad, some teachers, you need to let them know that you're recording them, because they can be very, okay, I don't like to be recorded, and this can't be shared to anybody. I had that happen a couple times. So it's very, nice to be aware of, what teacher is good with what. It's very just to ask them to make sure that you can record their lecture.
Okay, and last question, did any of you use the Rate My Professor app to see if your professors, how they're rated by other students? So you have. I just want a yes or no. Henry, you used it?
Yes, and it's useful, I think, especially for incoming freshmen. I would rely much more heavily upon the in-person, ask some upperclassmen about the teachers. Because I've had a teacher pull me, I went to their office hours, asked them a couple questions, and she said, Henry, can I ask you a personal question? I said, yeah. She said, do you use Rate My Professor? I said, sometimes. And she said, well, someone has wrote this really nasty review of me, and I don't know why. And it happened to be a teacher that I really liked. And so if that could possibly mean an incoming freshman might see that review and be like,
Not take right.
Steer far of them. I would encourage people to pay much more attention to what students at the university currently are saying.
I used it as a grad student, and it's dated, so that helps if you look at the date and not just what the comments are. But Tori, have you used Rate My Professor?
Yes, actually a bunch of times when I was in Wharton, because there would be, and I also listened to the students as well. I would ask around. People would just be like, oh, take this math teacher. They you know, this is, you know, they explain things better, or they allow take home tests. They go into more in depth. But Rate My Professor, Henry does have a point. There are some reviews that are very, very nasty about certain professors. And then there's ones that are just like, oh, they're extremely, you know, understanding about this, or, you know, they are more lenient on, you know, extra time and such. But yeah, it's very good to kind of keep that, you know, mid ground of, okay, I can't really take every single thing as truth on Rate My Professor, but just to kind of like, you know, have word from the student and from that site really helped navigate.
And Gina, did you use it as well? Okay, that's what I thought. Most people use a combination of both, Rate My Professor and Ask Around. And you can't take everything with a grain of salt, but it is a great tool to have as well. Okay. That's all for tonight. Thank you everyone for attending. We are so glad that you're joined us. I see some great notes in the chat, and if y'all, I don't know if the panelists can see the chat, but there's a lot of thank yous in there. Again, it'll be on the website for Neuhaus next week. And Mary, unless there's something else, then I think we are done. And thank you all for attending.
I want to add my thanks. Thank you very much. Neuhaus, HBIDA, and Briarwood, all thank you very much for your being so forthcoming and being so encouraging. Congratulations to you and good luck for the rest of your career.
Yes. Thanks, you guys. See you later. Have a good night and be safe. Thanks, Mary.
Bye.